played it. All right, it's the Jeff Dubay Show. It's a wild Wednesday. We are live at Bennett's Chop and Rail House. We're in West 7th. West 7th in Victoria, to be exact. We're getting ready for a wild playoff run. Hopefully it's a deep one, and it's a special day. Not just because Tony's not here. It's always special when Tony's not here, right? No.
Well, that's nice.
No, I'm just kidding. Tony's out getting beating up the bad guys. And for that, we thank him. But in his stead, Ben Remington is here again from Wild Extra, and from Fox Sports North, the Fox Sports North Net North, whatever. Tom Chorske. Tom Chorske, a Stanley Cup champion. Mr. Hockey from Southwest High School, of all goddamn places. And, I mean, it's just not the hockey hotbed it once was. But
it was.
But, I mean, well, you guys had a lot of spillover from Edina back in the day. I mean, you were right there with them. I mean, that's where the border was.
That was a lot of tradition. You know, they won the state championship in 70. They had a long tradition of Olympians and
did they still have the Indian head on the jersey when you played?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I
we
love
had
it.
the Blackhawks, kind of the Blackhawks deal.
Yeah, I loved it.
Oh, it's the greatest.
So, I mean, that area now, are there just no players? Are they all going to Holy Angels? Or where did they go to Jefferson? Where are they going?
Yeah, demographics have really changed a lot. A lot of, I think a lot of immigrants have moved into the school district, and there was changeover just in the families that were there.
Sure.
I think that's kind of what really drove the city to have to in all the neighborhoods. You know, when I played, we had our own conference, and Roosevelt, Edison, Henry, Southwest, Washburn. Now it's one co-op team.
Is that how it is in St. Paul too? Because you were going to go to Harding. You're a Hill Murray punk, but he's going to go to Harding.
And now they're all it's like all one big collection. I think it's like the Blades or something where they've really like
United. There's St. Paul United.
Okay.
I think, which
that's
is
not a soccer team. Huh? It sounds like a soccer team.
No, I think you're right. It does sound like a soccer team.
The one other thing I want to get out of the way here, and then no more genuflecting to Chorske, but the reason I was always jealous, I picked up Gopher hockey intense. I mean, I watched it in the 70s, but I picked it up intensively in the 80s, like, the Snuggerud, Chorske era, Richards.
Yeah.
And I always envied you because I don't think I ever saw a college game where you weren't the fastest guy on the ice. I mean, I'm not sucking up. I mean, you literally had legitimately more straight line speed than anybody on a game-in, game-out basis, and it had to be fun. It had to be like going to the rink and playing against kids. I mean, when you got a stride or two on everybody, I mean, you could always turn the corner. You could always, you'd always come up the wing and turn the corner on somebody and just take a big slap shot or something from the top of the circle. I mean, you could do what you wanted.
Yeah, it was a gift. I was the only son of my mother and father. Neither one was a real athlete. I was blessed with the legs. I have a high school coach and longtime buddy named Keith O'Brien, and he just says when I was born, God reached down and touched my legs, and I skated a lot as a kid. And then at the U, we had really good training with Jack Blatherwick, Cardiac Jack, who's a guy you've maybe heard of. And then people even in the NHL would tell me to just stop thinking and just skate, just use your speed, and it was a lot of fun. I don't know if I wasn't a men amongst boys maybe until I came back after that Olympic year in '89.
Yep.
But and even then I wouldn't go as far as to say that. I'm typically a pretty modest guy, but when you mentioned my speed,
well, you were the fastest guy.
I'll take it.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I at the time I was just a 20-year-old. I mean, I wasn't the great hockey mind that I've become over the years. I mean,
that's when it started.
Speaking of modesty, but I just as somebody who just started watching Gopher hockey intensively, I could instantly just say, God, that guy's a lot faster than everybody else. I mean, it was pretty obvious. It was pretty blatant. Now, I didn't get to watch you a lot when you were on the Devils or anything, so I didn't know if it carried over to the NHL or if the gap had to be narrowed a little bit.
It was narrowed, but I kept working on it. People will tell you that you should really, focus and run with your strong suits, and that was one of my strong suits. So maybe my hands never got much better, as far as handling the puck, but I could shoot pretty well, and I skated really fast. And there was a small window in the NHL, I think, where I was in the elite group of skaters. Yeah,
it's always fun, especially the college game, when you can see that like an opposing set of defensemen don't understand the speed of somebody they're dealing with. I've seen people take just ridiculous angles. Talking about the college game with like Phil Kessel or Justin Kloos or back in the 80s with you. I mean, where they think they've got you, and then like a stride later, they're like, fuck.
Yes. No, and you can, if you happen to be watching their footwork, they'll start to, fumble at their feet, or as you mentioned, they'll be skating backwards, and then by the time they decide to turn to the outside to take that player on, it's too late, and that player's already a stride past him, and they've turned too late.
Well, I remember the Mercyhurst game that opened the season 2 years ago. It was Justin Kluse's first collegiate game, and he's getting the edge and turning the corner on people. I'm like, this is your first game. You're not supposed to do that in your first game. I mean, I remember how long it took Craig Johnson to start doing some crazy. I mean, he was fast. He's as talented, and to talk about he had a unique stride, a kind of a high kick stride, but it's so much talent. Hill Murray guy. But I remember when he was a sophomore, he was behind the net on like a power play, and the D kind of had him hemmed in. He didn't really know what to do, and he just said, "Screw it," and just flipped a pass over the net and plopped it. It was like a Mickelson flop shot that plopped down in the crease. I'm thinking that. This guy's like in his first week of his sophomore season. It took balls to even try shit like that back then.
Yeah, you're right. He had a high kick. That's a good take by you. High kick, skate stride, but
it was a weird stride.
Super fast and
boy, he had hands. Boy, he could dangle.
Yeah, and he made it in the NHL. He had to play for a guy named Mike Keenan who was pretty hard on American college kids. But
yeah. So that Sutter cat out in L.A.
That guy too.
Yeah, I mean Nate Miller. Well, Nate Miller's a buddy of mine, and he his first camp was with the Kings, and he said it was his first preseason game. He suited up, he's all fired up, and Sutter's got Sutter's got the opposing lines on the grease board. Yeah. With a little note about each player, like we'll dig in the corners, we'll shoots first, looks to shoot first, whatever.
Soft, hit him hard.
Yeah, but if there was an American college player, it just said college, that's all it would say. Just say like disregard. Just ridiculous.
Just cross them off. Red pen.
Yeah, seriously, it's just ridiculous. And there still is. I mean, that stigma's disappearing, but it does exist to a certain extent. We had it here. We had it here for years with Riseborough. No, we really did. They did not like the American college player.
No, and not too many Minnesotans either. I mean, they had some token Minnesotans, and Darby Hendrickson was one of them and performed really well.
Sure.
When I was available.
Are you saying Steve Aronson was a token?
I was available, and they were we already got enough Minnesotans. Do
you remember the first player they signed? I think it was Steve Aronson from Minnetonka.
Was
St. Thomas?
Was he the first?
St. Thomas. Yeah, it was just a joke. I mean, it was ridiculous. But we are here, believe it or not, to talk NHL and talk Wild. We're going to include people other than myself in the conversation. Ben Remington, Jason McGovern, Scott Schweitz. Let's just start it off with the playoff matchup. I don't like it. I mean, I know the squad's been on fire. I know that they're clicking on all cylinders. The road trip put me at ease. I was that homestand really. I was always afraid that to expend the energy that they did to get where they are, that they might shoot the wad before they got to the playoffs, and they started to look that on that last homestand. But then to go on the road on a back-to-back with travel and beat Chicago, and then to beat Nashville when you just clinched. You got everybody sitting. You got Kemper, let's say in 2 of his first 5 shots, it looks lost. And you win that game against a team that has to have it on the road. And after that game, I'm like, okay, they're okay. I mean, and they are fine. But St. Louis is not a good matchup.
No, and I think that road trip was the stamp that this is a team that really not only performs best, but can perform better when their backs are against the wall or when it gets to be a really tight situation. That's starting to be the label this team has inherited or built for itself, which isn't the worst thing ever. But to your point about the matchup, it's a tall order. There's no question. This is a team that's got some really dynamic scorers up front. They've got some power. And they've got a really deep D, but I like our D core as well. And you look at their goaltending.
That's what I like. We can get to that. We can
get to that part. But overall, it's going to be a tight series, 1-goal games, unless it's empty netter. Then maybe it'll be a 2-goal game by the end of the game. But it's going to be cat and mouse and a lot of strategies. I talked with Zach Parise briefly today in the locker room after practice, and I asked him, I said, this is kind of a yes or no question because I don't want you to tell me all of your secrets and strategies, because they have looked, when teams get in the playoff series, there's a playbook and they've been watching video and they identify some tendencies. Mm-hmm. And he said, oh, yeah. And he told me something to look for, but that is enough to give a team sometimes that we're not privy to enough confidence, and if it starts to work, then we won't see it immediately, but the team will be feeling confident that they can beat this St. Louis Blues.
Well, I mean, getting back to the road trip, I'd say that hindsight's 20/20, but considering if we would have beat the Blues, and then a few hours later, Colorado goes out and sticks it to Chicago, we would have flip-flopped with them, and then we would have been, against Nashville. And it could have repercussions in the future because seeding-wise, if you would end up facing Chicago, then you would have had the higher seed. So I mean, in that kind of setup. So
and in that bracket, it maybe looks a little easier.
Yep, and even if you go forward in the brackets, eventually, I mean, it's far away, but say you made it to the conference finals, how does the seeding work then in the conference finals based on, the setup with the Pacific? Everybody but Winnipeg is going to have home ice advantage again. If we made it that far, but
the whole system is. I still haven't wrapped my mind around the new system. To be honest with you,
how it's just divided.
Well, it's not just divided. I mean, it's an entire.
They don't reseed.
It's the brackets.
Just the fact that it doesn't reseed.
Well, that's part of it. But I mean, with the whole, take the top 3 from each division and 2 wild cards. That's
that whole part.
That threw me for a while. Because I'm looking at the wild card standings and I'm seeing guys above other teams with less points. Because they're the top 3 of their division, and I don't know. The whole thing's just a little convoluted.
Do you think they should just take the top 8? From each side?
Yeah, I do.
They used to, but I mean,
I still think they should.
When I don't think it's the best way to do it.
Well, they do ultimately. I mean, well, I guess they don't. I mean, a third place team could have more points than a team that misses a wild card if they're in a different division. So yeah, you're right. I just miss the days, back to the '80s again when Chorske was lighting it up at the U, when you just played in the Norris division. If you had 2 Norris division series, and if you won 2 rounds, you got out of your division. Now you're playing the Smythe division.
Yeah.
I mean, I liked that. And then that's what built rivalry.
That's kind of what they're getting back to, aside from the wild card.
They're trying to. Yeah.
I mean, the wild card are exactly. I mean, it's the wild card. Because even if you are a good enough team to make the playoffs, you're not automatically going to get eliminated just because there's 4 and 4.
Yeah, it makes sense when they've got a really strong division like the Central is right now versus the Pacific. I mean, it's down. It's just not as good as the Central, and that's what it comes down to, and that's why Winnipeg is where they're at.
I'm completely baffled that LA missed the playoffs, considering they're in the Pacific Division with the likes of Edmonton and and Arizona.
Yeah.
I mean,
they're kind of the Gophers of the NHL. It's like you kick yourself in the rear end and get going. I mean, you're too good to be that bad. And they looked like they were flipping a switch. You remember when the Wild were on the island? The Kings were were playing the Rangers, and they were handing it to them. I mean, it was like 4-1 in the third, and they were just coasting, and they were looking really good. And I'm thinking, shit, we got them at home next week, and they're coming hard. And after that, they just went to hell because they lost to us, they lost to Chicago. But that Edmonton game, I mean, what's Jonathan Quick on your bench for against Edmonton with a couple games left in the year?
That was a coaching mistake right there. I mean, I think they were going to rest him unless there's something we don't know. But
well, you know why? He's an American college hockey player. Sutter. No, but yeah, to me, the Kings were almost just a little too fat and lazy for their own good. They were the kind of the Gophers of the NHL this past year. It pains me to say that because it's my squad. I mean, not the Kings. Fuck the Kings. I mean, the Blues are a team that we have had really a hard time with over the years because of their grinding physical style of play, their size. But this year we had some success against them, but it came in weird ways. I mean, I remember winning in St. Louis on a back-to-back where it was one of those games where Dubnyk has to hold him in it for the first period, and you just then you just chip 1 or 2 in and steal one, and we did that to him once. Yep. There was a game here about a month ago where
was that the one that Koivu scored in was overtime victory maybe or
I think it was a 2-1 regulation.
Okay.
But the game,
thinking of Calgary.
The game here a month ago was a game where we had our share of puck luck. I mean, we had some deflections, we had some goals going in off of elbows and assholes. I mean, it happens.
It was like 6-3 or something.
Yeah, but well, here's the thing. I was watching that game online. I'm king of the internet feed when it comes to. So I'm watching St. Louis because I like Panger. I'm a Darren Payne guy.
Yeah.
But I mean, they're just ad nauseum, just whining about this and this bounce and that. But Hitchcock even did the other day at a presser, just 2 days ago, talked about that crazy game where they got all those bounces against us. But I mean, it's not a ball. It has edges. I mean, throughout the course of a game, a puck will bounce weird hundreds of times.
Yeah.
And if you just happen to be in the right place to take advantage of 1 or 2 of those, you deserve credit for that.
And I don't think the Wild is any stranger to that. I'll reference last year's playoffs. I mean, if you want to take them off the stanchion and then go right to Kane and that ends the series.
Shit happens.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to? I don't think you want to equal everything out. Yeah, everything bounces different ways, and I mean, the hockey gods are not forgiving.
But if you're not playing, if you're not getting the spots you have to, bouncers aren't going to do you any good.
Make your own luck, right?
Yeah. I mean, how many times do you think people say, well, see, Parise, I could do that. He just stood there and the puck just landed on his stick. He had an open end. Well, get there. Get there. I mean, fight for the real estate.
Yeah.
And then tell me about how easy it is.
It's not an accident that he's there.
No.
Getting that done.
And he gets abused to be there.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of times that he gets cross-checked in the back and the numbers and doesn't get called. I mean, and just not just a little hit, but like sent to the ice.
Well, he just did in St. Louis on Saturday.
Sent to the ice, and then he gets back up and gets right back in there. I mean,
well, a buddy of mine, he's kind of bitter, but he's a good dude. He's a big hockey guy. When Pominville scored on that one timer, that rip against Nashville to win that game, instantly I got a text that says Precy couldn't do that, and I said sure. But Pominville doesn't, take the Christian Brothers bow tie to get 20 in the paint every year either.
Right.
He goes, but he could. Well, he doesn't.
No, he doesn't.
It is what it is.
I don't think he would either. I'm not trying to take anything away from him, but I don't think it's the same. He's not the same character hockey player that Parise is.
And let's get our first break in. It's a Wild Wednesday. It's Jeff Dubé show. We are at Bennett's. You decide what you're going to get for dinner yet? Because everything's good. I mean, everything's amazing. You said you're a regular here, semi-regular?
It's not my first stop, but sometimes on the way home from a game, there's a stop that happens.
It's kind of tainted because this is where the Bulldogs celebrated their national title a few years ago.
I know, yeah, he's a Bulldog guy.
Yeah, I mean, see those stains over there? That's beer celebration. And some of those kids had to be underage, by the way, Joe. Get Joe out here. I want to know.
Where is Joe?
Did they check all those IDs? They had to check all those IDs. But
probably an NC2A violation in there, too.
Seriously. I mean, I tell you what, though, of all the hated rivals of the Gophers, the Bulldogs are the one that I could tolerate the most. I mean, even though they get this, the 1 year I'm up there and they put up on the scoreboard UMD and UMTC. It's like, come on, get over it. It's not UMTC.
I like their coaching staff, too.
Well, Sandlin's a great
guys.
guy.
Yep.
Sandlin's a fantastic guy. Who else is on the staff?
Plant.
Oh, Derek?
Derek Plant.
Really?
Yep.
Huh.
And then a former Fighting Sioux guy.
Yeah, that's the old Sandlin connection.
Yeah.
Remember when Blaze left? Everybody just assumed it was Sandlin. I mean, it was a slam dunk, and they never even talked to him. His phone never rang. And he was a little slighted by that.
He's a good coach.
He's a hell of a guy. He was not happy that he didn't get a call. But anyway, I digress. We got to take our first break. We'll be back.
With Souhan Unfiltered, sports columnist for the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, Jim Souhan presents in-depth conversations with the best writers and sports personalities in the area. Souhan brings professional journalism flavor without the verbal censoring. Find out what unfiltered really means. Only on the Alive and Social Network. SouhanUnfiltered.com. The term foodie can sometimes come across as a tickle pretentious. BT and Lydia are here to demystify the term and reclaim it for the sake of good food. Their weekly podcast brings in fellow foodies and culture creators from the Twin Cities to talk about all things food. Find this duo only on the Alive and Social Network.
All right, we're back. Bennett's Chop and Rail House. Tom Chorske, the guest, Ben Remington, Jason McGovern, Scott Schweitz. I'm Jeff Dubé. Thomas Vanek has been a hot topic of this show all year long. And, I'm the Gopher apologist, so I've been the Vanek apologist. But I think this guy took way too much criticism. I mean, it started before the season before the puck even dropped. People were calling him Heatley 2.0. And that's really unfair because his skills have not eroded to that point. And also, I don't like people using that Heatley term derogatory because he's a great fucking guy. And he's a great locker room guy. And he could have been he couldn't have soldiered it out any better than he did. I mean, he never pouted, and when he was called on, he performed. So I mean, to use a derogatory term is wrong in the first place. But to think of Vanek as a guy who's so at the tail end that he's going to be in and out of the lineup, and that was just ridiculous. And when he was struggling, the entire team was struggling. I mean, nobody was going good then. So to single him out of that mess, when Pominville wasn't going, Parise, nobody was going. Suter, I mean, I thought it was just ridiculous to put all that on him at that time.
Yeah, I think there was high expectations. We were hopeful, right, that Danny Heatley is no longer on the roster, and that you're getting Thomas Vanek, and he's a Gopher, and he wanted to come here.
Yeah, took a hometown discount.
Yeah, you could argue that. I mean, he's not.
He's not living check to check.
He's not living check to check. But I think there was just a lot of sentiment and a lot of hope there, and he didn't just light the world on fire. So I think you're right that some of that criticism was a little harsh, a little too much. I think.
Do you think his game's changed? Because he's.
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Not only is he, I don't want to say he's pass first. That maybe takes it a little too far, but he does look to set people up more than he used to.
Yes.
But he's really adept at it. I mean, he's not passing because he can't shoot. I mean, he's a playmaker.
Yeah.
Legit.
Yeah. No, I think it is. I don't know if he has lost a step or if he just didn't train for speed over the summer or he just has mentally changed how he's thinking about the game.
I thought he was heavy when the season started. We had him on the show in an in-person appearance originally. I thought he was a little heavy, a little chunky.
He appeared heavy.
But you know
what? As you get older,
I'm the fitness expert.
No, I know, but speaking from experience, I can say that at the end of my career, I probably even gained, I think 3 or 4 pounds, 5 pounds.
Is that noticeable? Does that do anything?
It's not. Well, I remember talking to a former. It was Slava Fetisov, who I'd run into. He was then playing for the Detroit Red Wings, and he saw. He was like, "Yeah, how's your?" He's talking to me
you
like.
Played with him with the Devils.
Yeah, I played with him with the Devils, and he said, "How's your weight?" He said, because I said, it's a little bit of a struggle. I'm my game, not my weight, but my game. And he said, "Oh, you got to make sure you as you get older, your legs." Your legs don't have the same spring, the same jump, so you got to lose weight, train harder, and this and that. So, I mean, I get it. It happens, but he's not that old. I mean,
he's 30, 31.
Right, he's the same age as Suter and Parisi. So,
yeah.
When someone said, "I hope you got a few more years in here," you're like, "Well, I hope you do," because Parisi and Suter are signed for 7 more years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and they're both playing at the top of their games right now. I mean, I'm not saying they're still ascending. So I don't know what the pinnacle would be for either, but neither is descending. I can tell you that.
No.
I mean, they're right in the prime.
Oh yeah.
Well, one of the things you guys didn't touch on with Vanek is he had to have some mental anxiety over the whole gambling thing. I mean, you had to. I mean, that has to affect somebody. The fact that you're, there's questions about being, federally indicted and about gambling rings and it's public that you lost in excess of $1 million in gambling debt. I mean, that probably screws with you a little bit.
A little bit. And they pile on that they were bouncing him around from line to line.
Yeah, that's what
and he was right. And he likes to be. He's a right shot that likes to play left wing. And sometimes he was playing right wing. And sometimes I always figure certain players play with whoever they want to play with, right? If they don't play with someone, there's a reason that the coach isn't putting him together. It's because they can say, no, I don't want to play with that guy. But so. Finally, he's landed, and I talked to Charlie Coyle today about their line, and Charlie even said for their line, they feel like they've been together for a while now, very comfortable, and so I'm looking for Thomas Vanek to also enjoy the fact that when he arrives at the rink tomorrow, the score sheet or the stat sheet for everyone will say zeros, and he can, he gets to start from scratch. Not that it was a bad year, really. In the end, he chipped away little by little.
Oh, yeah.
And he contributed.
He had a good year. He's third on the team in points?
Yeah, and he's
20 goals.
20 goals for 10 straight years at least. So.
Well, and the one thing I always remember about him, I mean, he only played 2 years here, but the signature for him was clutch goals. Now, I mean, the overtime goals, late third period goals, postseason goals, game-winning goals in the NCAA tournament. Now, when you go to Buffalo for 8 years, you're not going to have a big chance in the postseason to carry that over. Yeah. So I mean, he's not a proven playoff performer. And then he had the whole thing. I mean, I thought people were a little too critical of the Montreal experience. I mean, that was a effed up year for him. I mean, he got bounced around to the Islanders, and then you go to Montreal, you don't even speak the language, and you're just supposed to fit right into a playoff.
You can tell as a person, he didn't probably like all that. It just was happening to him. No. He didn't want that. That's why he came back to Minnesota to settle down.
You probably get checked out eventually when you get bounced around, and, it's like constant speculation of well, now you got shipped over here. Oh, now because we can't sign you, we're trading you over here, and it's like, you're kind of a rental player, 3 times in a season, and it sure, it has to affect you. Where I'm not bought in. I'm not, and I don't want to say that you're not going to go and give it your all, but there has to be a little bit of that to say, well, this isn't, my team, or I haven't connected with these people, and speaking about the lines, I think he has found a place that he's fitting in.
He loves playing with Fontaine.
And he's gonna miss that, I think, with if Nino's gonna be on that line instead of Fontaine dropping to the fourth.
Might have to
slide
him up there.
Yeah, I mean,
how about that? Early in the year, he's asking for Granlund, and he wanted Granlund and Parisi. Now he wants Fontaine. Give me back Fontaine.
Well, because we talked about it on the show, Fontaine is a catalyst.
He's smart and he works.
It doesn't matter. I mean, not to give credit to the Bulldogs that you love so much, but I mean, but he's a player that literally can plug and play on any line. He's so versatile and he's hardworking, and he has some attributes of everything. He can be like a grinding player.
If
he
you're
has
smart
some, he
and
has
you
some
try,
speed.
you got a chance.
He sets people up, and everything. I mean, he does what he's told and asked of, and I mean, he produces with every single position, whether it's first line or fourth.
Well, the other thing with the whole Montreal experience, I mean, you've been around, obviously the whole league, and you've seen hockey cultures. Do you think there's a harder place for an outsider to play than French-speaking Quebec? I mean, like if you're a kid from a U.S. college or just Western, even from Western Canada, would you want to play for Montreal? Wouldn't it be hard?
Well, I could speak from pretty good experience. They drafted me in the first round.
Oh, well, there you go.
So I went to Montreal into a training camp as a American-born
They
college
took
hockey
Derek
player.
Fisher in the first round too. They got to get off the Gophers.
In my defense, they had 2 picks in the first round.
Well, I don't know whether they got Derek Fisher.
They took this first guy, Josie Charbonneau, at like 8 or 9, and they picked me at 16.
Okay.
And so I arrived there.
That's a high pick for a Minnesota kid back then. That's crazy high back then.
That's pretty high pick. And Phil Housley was about the only higher one before me, maybe.
I was going to say, that's crazy high for the 80s.
So I arrived there, in awe just to be in Montreal and to play in the Forum.
Did anybody speak English? Did anybody speak English for you?
There was a couple. No, they're not all French-Canadian, but the media, they have English media and French-Canadian media.
What a pain in the ass.
And that includes a couple newspapers in both languages, a couple radio stations in both languages, and a couple television channels in both languages. And then there's the national media as well. So
and there's just an era,
just day in and day out, the media credentials is in the 20s or 30s.
Isn't there just like an aura of arrogance, kind of
on the French-Canadian side? There is. At one point, Quebec tried to secede from the nation of Canada.
Yeah, they still want to.
I don't blame them.
They felt like they were better than, or they could do their own
weird.
thing.
But that is weird.
So that was I guess that speaks a little bit.
I'm not sure which side I would have pulled for in that. Civil War. I mean,
listen. I mean, it looks like maybe there'll be a team going back to Quebec City in the not too distant
you know what?
future.
It's we were talking about this.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's European-like, but guess who the French Canadian media pulls for, and it wasn't the American college kid when he got there, because I remember I sat down and Pat Burns was the coach, and he was kind of a hard ass anyway, and hard to please. Didn't really want to help. He didn't really want to help any rookies. If he had to teach us or coach us, he was a former cop. And a really disciplinarian, good coach. Obviously, he had a long run, and he was Coach of the Year 3 times, I think, and won a couple Stanley Cups in different places. But at the time, he really wasn't a nurturing guy and didn't want to really kind of spend a lot of his energy helping me out. So he brought me into his office, and he rolled out the French newspapers, which I couldn't read. And he said, they're writing all about how you're struggling, how you're failing. What do you want me to do? I can't protect you anymore.
You know what, though? You caught a little bit of a break winding up in New Jersey because when it comes to the American college hockey player, they were one of the more progressive organizations. They were in the front end of that. Lou
Lamoriello had come from Providence.
Well, absolutely. And then you said there was like Ralston. I mean, there were a number of American colleges.
Yes, and there had been some before me. Dave Maley, who was a Minnesotan, had been in New Jersey. Tom Curvers had been in New Jersey. Eric Weinrich was a main guy. And we won the Stanley Cup with some Americans.
Neil
Broughton and Mike Peluso.
Those Bulldogs.
Chris McAlpine from St. Paul was on the roster.
Oh, was he?
Kevin Dean, who was
Max
from the Madison area. So
Max like Mike Tyson, a tough guy with a little whiny, squeaky voice.
Mike Peluso?
No, Chris McAlpine.
Oh, Chris McAlpine.
He's a tough guy, but he doesn't sound like a tough guy. He sounds like Tyson.
Heavy hitter.
Yeah, he's one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah.
At first I thought you said Mike Tyson. I'm like, I don't think he sounds like a little guy.
No, Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson is the stereotypical big guy who sounds like a little wimp.
No, the lisp doesn't help
and McAlpine was straight up badass. As a matter of fact, his autographed pictures, you see it right when you walk in the front door here on the wall.
Absolutely.
I mean, he was straight up badass. As a matter of fact, that '94 Gopher team is one of my all-time favorites. I mean, they came out of the gate, they were like 0-6, and they were just dead in the water. But they have, what they had? They had seniors. They had McAlpine and Nielsen, Diedzik, Bianchi.
Yeah.
I mean, they had seniors. They wouldn't let them sink, and they went to the Frozen Four. But anyway, I digress again. We could just do Gopher memories for the next however many minutes.
A summer show.
Let me ask you this. Now, I've always said that when teams say we don't care who we get, they always say that.
Yeah.
And one school of thought is that's just lip service because they don't want locker board material for the other team.
Yep.
But I've always kind of thought that it's more than lip service because if you really sit around in the locker room for the last week of the season, hoping that the things just fall right for you to get a certain team. And then you get that team. I think haven't you lost your edge? If you get what you want, don't you almost say, you take a deep breath, and say, hey, yeah,
let your guard down.
Yeah, I mean, as a pro athlete, can you afford to think like that? Because I would think your edge is gone.
No, you can't. You can't. And that's why I was in the locker room asking some guys today, trying to find out if their approach to this series is, well, I just want to do my job, or I just want to play my role. It's like, no, you gotta understand what your role is, and then try to add some value, or you do a little extra, right? And supposedly Charlie Coyle said, nope, I want to raise my game, I want to elevate my game, and that was great to hear. From him,
like Howla last year,
because he's a guy, right? Like Howla last year, they get into the playoffs, and you know what? It's not easy to do. It's not as hard to do as you think, because you get to concentrate and focus on the same team, on your role. You start to get a little confidence, and you get a bounce, you get a little puck luck your way, and all of a sudden, things are going your way, and playoffs is all about momentum, right? I mean, it's momentum swings, and if it starts swinging against you, you got to figure out a way to change it and stop it. And sometimes it means losing a game and starting to take over momentum the next game. But in a lot of ways, it happens in game. There's momentum swings, and that's why we were looking at St. Louis today in our planning for these first two pre and post game shows. But the last 2 years, St. Louis has gotten into the playoffs, won the first 2 games, and then lost 4 straight.
And we've gone the other way, basically.
Yeah, we've kind of
we lost 2 and come home and won 2.
Right. So you see how winning the first 2 games doesn't guarantee anything, and neither does losing 2 games, and that's because momentum plays such a huge part in playoffs.
I mean, the one quote I did see was from Dubnyk, and he basically is like, "This is great, but we're wanting to do a whole lot more." And to have your goaltender of all people be the guy that's like, "Who cares if we made the playoff? Like, we want to, our goal is
especially
to make
for a guy who wasn't
make
been
it
there
deep,
before.
make it deep in the playoffs." So I mean, I don't know how much of that is just like lip service. I mean, like you said, or if that's like actually like, if your goaltender is like invested and is like has that gamer mentality right out of the gate. I mean,
that's probably mature enough to make that statement or maybe think that way. I often will think that that's just what's being talked about in the locker room, and he's reiterating kind of the message from the coaching staff.
Well, you hope that he wants that, he has that kind of attitude.
Either way. And he should, maybe at his age, he realizes, hey, this is the best opportunity he's ever had to go do something in the playoffs. He's got a contract coming up, and he recognizes that these chances don't come along, very often.
Now, traditional school of thought would be that a team like the Blues is better equipped for the playoffs. They're physical, they grind it out, and that kind of team usually beats a speed or finesse team in the postseason. That doesn't hold true anymore, though. I mean, St. Louis has gone out early 2 years in a row with this formula, and you've got recent Stanley Cup champions like Chicago and L.A. that are speed and skill teams. I mean, L.A. can play it both ways. But Chicago can a little, but they're still mostly a speed, finesse, skill team, I think. So I mean, we're not. This isn't 1972. I mean, you can win.
The rules changed. Maybe had something to do with that, right? I mean, because of the 2-line pass thing, and you can't get hemmed in and ice the puck and then change your line and get who you want out there. So they've done some real good.
Trapezoid is an underrated rule.
Trapezoid,
I mean, the goaltenders were really controlling every dump in. I mean, you couldn't ever get any forecheck going.
Right. So I think we're going to see. This will be a great example of if the Wild can. They keep saying, well, we're not going to get into a physical battle with St. Louis. But they're going to have to stand up, and some guys are going to have to finish their checks. I always believe that, if you are really, really getting out hit, you're not going to win. And I wasn't the most physical guy, but I had a coach at Tommy McVie. He'd say, basically he said, if you're not hitting, you're not skating. Because in order to get some hits in, your feet got to be moving, and you got to be getting to loose pucks. So at a minimum, they're going to have to get on the St. Louis Blues and shut down time and space using their speed and take away some pucks. They might have to bump into some guys along the way.
Well, it has to be smart physicality too. I mean, it can't be like Cal Clutterbuck physicality where you're just hitting to hit. I mean, you're basically like you're going to hit people for effect, and if it's something where you need to be physical, to have somebody maybe look over their shoulder and not have a lot of time and think that they have as much time to play with the puck, The one thing I've found funny is, considering we've talked about the speed and the physicality, and obviously the Blues have gotten much better speed-wise. I mean, and skill-wise with the Tarasenko's, and they have the
Oshie.
Oshie and Vitera. I mean, like
well-rounded
and
guys.
the third line guys are, I mean, the ones that I think that people are talking about that are going to be the most worry. The biggest worry for us is not the first and second line guys, because we might be able to pair up with them, but it's the guys that are a little more deep. But the fact that we aren't practicing with the speed guys like a Schrader and a Haula is kind of intriguing to me, that you don't want to put that speed at the bottom of your in that fourth line, to maybe have a line that's going to be speedy and that can do some damage if they can get, like you talked about, get past the defenseman, or and have somebody you sidestep somebody or make them work a little more, then just have that fourth line be bigger and physical with Carter and.
You got to have that in there, and I think special teams on the penalty killing side comes into play there. That's where kind of a couple of their important penalty killers are as well. And when you're going into the playoffs, you gotta really be thinking strategically. And I know Schrader's got some really great speed, and he showed it. But getting Zucker back and scoring right away takes care of some of that, as far as some of that speed. So they really do divide it down into some tough decisions, but they go with a lineup that has tools and pieces that they're going to need and rely on. At least in game one too. You're not sure how it's going to be.
Sure.
You gotta err on the side of having I think some size and some meat.
This team can really change its look game to game. I mean, they really can.
Yep.
Absolutely. With the fact that everybody's healthy. I mean, with the exception of Cook tweaking something, or the goaltender catching some sort of whatever, and he's separated from the team.
They've been saying they should wrap that guy in bubble wrap whenever they put him in a car or in a bus.
I was saying that about Backstrom, because you don't want him getting hurt for next year either. But having the guys that you can plug and play is absolutely right. And Brodziak, somebody who I have not been the biggest fan of throughout the course of the year, but he is playing great defensive hockey, and clearly is somebody that is going to be an asset to us in the playoffs, for not only a penalty kill guy, but a good depth guy, and maybe he can dazzle us with some goal scoring.
Well, how about the shift from the Bizarro universe last road trip, where Vanek makes a play to force a turnover at center ice, and then springs Brodziak on the break? We need to reverse. Reverse those roles. You remember that sequence?
Well, it's just funny anytime you see those guys
What are they on the ice
in that
together?
situation.
But they're even on the same line.
I know.
It's pretty weird.
That's 2/3 of the slowest line we could put out there.
I mean, Bennett came out and like picked a guy's pocket in the neutral zone, and then Brodziak was coming with a head of steam. It's like,
hey, I haven't been the biggest Brodziak fan either, to your point, but there was a couple times when he's moving his feet and actually going. I just think sometimes he settles for that role of just being good defensively, trying to win some faceoffs, killing penalties, and that's what I'm talking about, where you want to see that plus a little bit more. You want him to thinking, when there is a chance to go score or to be a little opportunistic, to chip in some offense, just to settle in.
He did get snake bit for a long time, though. I mean, he had open nets, and he's shanking the puck, and he's missing. I mean, he had a streak of I don't know how many, where it was just he couldn't put one in the net. I mean, if the net was 90% open, I mean, he was missing, and it was just
hopefully that's over now, and he can bury the puck a little.
Hey, before we go to break, I was just looking up the TV, and we've seen the Islanders on the ice getting warmed up for the opening game against the Capitals. Correct? They play the Capitals.
Yep, they play the Caps.
I mean, I know I keep going back to the Gopher card here, especially with Tom in the house. But isn't it cool how many Minnesota kids are on that New York team? I mean, the Islanders they got a serious Minnesota flavor, which is kind of funny. I mean, they're not all Gophers.
Is Nate Schmidt in the lineup for the Caps? I don't know if he is, but he's a good player, more recent player. But
I mean, I know there's a lot of Minnesota kids that weren't Gophers on that team. Brock Nelson, Anders Lee, but nonetheless, there's a pretty big Minnesota flavor for a GM who thought we don't develop talent. Remember the
Garth Snow.
Yeah, he had to pull Oposo out here because we don't put guys in the NHL.
Yeah,
Jackass.
I think it was more of that was a knock on Lucia more than
Well, it was,
yeah.
but it was bullshit. I mean, it just wasn't true. I mean,
No, it's good to see, and there were other games this year in the NHL where there was quite a few Minnesotans on the ice.
You know, the Rangers have got a
and
Minnesota
Americans
flavor now because they're going to have Shea up there next year, and they to go with McDonough and Steppen. I mean, they got their share. I mean, the Big Apple's ripe with Minnesota players.
Yeah,
not necessarily Gophers. I mean, there's some really good
Phil
Minnesota.
Kessel's out there, and there's Niskanen and Minnesota.
Goligoski's a hell of a player. There's a lot of high-end Minnesota.
A lot of Minnesota guys, yeah.
But it shocks me how many like high-end Minnesota guys are out there that aren't U of M alums. I mean, like McDonough. How do we miss on McDonough? Jesus Christ.
Yeah, he's good.
Oh my God, he's fantastic. But anyway, that's enough of that. We got to take a break. Come back. We'll take a look around the NHL. Maybe preview some of these series and just continue to talk Minnesota Wild on a Wild Wednesday.
Hey everybody, this is comedian Paul Mercurio, and I'm very excited to say that I packed up my podcast, The Paul Mercurio Show, which wasn't my first choice for a name. My first choice was Go Ahead, Touch It, but apparently that didn't test well. Well, I'm taking my podcast and I'm moving it to the Alive and Social Network, which is weird because I'm neither alive nor very social. I've interviewed a few people you might know, like Sir Paul McCartney. Yeah, that guy. He was in a band or something, I'm not sure. Stephen Colbert, Bob Costas, Jay Leno, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Kristen Chenoweth, and many, many more. I've won Emmy and Peabody Awards for my work on The Daily Show. I've had my own Comedy Central special, been on HBO, and I'm excited to be part of the new network. The Paul Mercurio Show is available on iTunes, Android, and available at paulmercurio.com. Listen to my show every week. Every week you will get rich. How? I give you a foolproof method to go out and make $100,000 without ever leaving your couch. Okay, that's a lie, but the podcast, it's good.
What are you drinking tonight, Jason?
The Minnesota Pubcast with Jason and Molly.
I'm drinking a Liftbridge Hop Dish.
It's Pub Talk from a Minnesotan perspective.
I'm always really proud of where I'm from. I'm super proud of Minnesota, and I think Minneapolis is awesome. I think St. Paul is awesome. I think they're a really awesome cultural epicenter.
With great local guests.
So the other voice you hear in the room today is Jerry Fagerberg from the City Pages. Talk about the official Minnesota Tall Boy, which your piece is on the cover of the City Pages today.
It is on the cover, came out today.
Talking movies.
All right, you saw Boyhood. I need to hear what you thought.
Oh, man. Oh, man.
Wow.
Sports.
A guy who was undrafted knew what was coming.
And everything else you talk about at the pub.
Let's not pretend like we know what we're talking about.
Well, what do you think I do every show?
The Minnesota Pubcast with Jason McGovern and Molly Burke. Listen at mnpubcast.com or subscribe on iTunes.
We want to just find meaning in life.
When I get to the bottom, I go back to the top of the slide. I don't feel right. I get to the bottom, I go
We are underway. The Stanley Cup playoffs have begun. They're skating in Washington, in the nation's capital. The Islanders and the Caps. Did you see, by the way, last night, SportsCenter was running down like their top 10 NHL plays of the season? Did you see the Ovechkin goal that was highlighted
Against the Devils when he pulls it through his legs?
Yes, and he splits the D and then scores from his knees.
Yeah,
I mean, you can't make. He's got more skill than anybody I've ever seen, bar none. I know he's a mixed bag. He's a hit or miss with third.
Well, I think.
But I mean, that's just a flat out skill level. These are shit that people can't even imagine.
But most players get on the ice and they're trying to play a complete game. They don't want to get scored on.
Right.
They gotta get to their spot. They gotta get the puck out. They gotta get pucks in deep. They're gonna chip, whatever, pursue. He's thinking about one thing.
Are you saying he's selfish?
He's the suck
call him
I don't even mean selfish. He's rounded his game out, but still, I don't think anyone gets on the ice and thinks about scoring a goal as much and as hard as he does. And he just, it's like his thought bubble over his head is, I'm going to try and score a goal right now.
Well, I mean, when I was just first
He does it well.
He's very good at it.
That's the thing. I mean, when I was just first starting to watch hockey, and I kept hearing all this shit about you can't turn it over at the other blue line. I'm like, fuck that. Go and try to score. Dangle, go around. Maybe you hear, no, you can't give it up with the blue line. You got to get it behind the D. If you give it up with the blue line, it does. I mean, it really does.
At that level, yeah.
So maybe sometimes a guy like Ovechkin, maybe he's dangling a little too much and trying to in bad.
Well, coaches typically give them a little attitude. Guys with that kind of offensive dynamic plays and skills.
He does things that people wouldn't even dare try. I mean, like the goal you and I were just referring to. Who would even try that?
Well, who even thinks of it when they're on the ice? Like I said, when I was on the ice, I just was, at times, and you're just trying to crack the lineup. Oh, please don't get scored on. I'm just going to make the safe play. I'm not going to try to stick handle at the blue lines. And if you did, the coach would sit you down and come down to the end of the bench and say, you try that again, and you're going down to, Frederickson.
It's like, well, I know this is college and not NHL, but like with Kyle Oposo had been in the goalpost for like a month when he scored between the legs, no-look goal. Yeah. It's like, how the fuck do you try? You're 18 years old. Who do you think you are?
They all do it.
But it was a crazy freshman goal. I mean, I've never seen.
If you've been around like younger hockey players, though, I mean, I was a defenseman, so I didn't have anything to worry about except like stopping other people from scoring. Mm-hmm. But my friends that were forwards, they'd constantly be like, stick handling, doing weird things. They'd be doing all kinds of weird puck handling.
For everybody.
But the higher you go, coaches beat that out of you.
Yeah,
because they don't want the turnover. They don't want it in the back of their own net. They want to win the game. How do you win the game? You don't give up scoring chances again. Yeah. So they're worried about making silly plays at the wrong time.
Do you think the game was hurt though for a while that we went too far in that direction? That the players lost their creativity. Everything was programmed into system, and it was like the league was full of Stefan Veilleux. It's like there was no fun.
Well, and the ironic thing, the paradox thing, is that the coaches drool over. When they get a skilled player, right? They're like, "Oh my God, finally I got a guy with so much skill."
Yeah, and then they strip the personality off him.
Well, yeah, or they're stripping it out of other guys that have maybe almost as much skill or arrive in the NHL with a lot of skill because that's what got them there.
Yeah.
And then they say, "Nope, you're going to be a grinding winger, and you're just going to, we're going to chip it in and chip it out, dump and chase." And
well, it depends what kind of system it is too. I mean, look at like the Mayer era. I mean, it was all about the trap, and I mean, people would complain forever about boring hockey and like.
I gotta stick up for that one. Though.
I know, like, for sure. But I mean, that was like they want the exciting hockey and they want like the end-to-end rushes and they don't want like the the clogged neutral zone and like
right, which is why they changed that red line rule. We had as many scoring chances and as much offense as anyone did. We would say that instead of dumping it in and trying to win the battle and get the puck back out to the slot for a scoring chance, we created a turnover out in the neutral zone or out above the top of the circle and then reattack.
And then it's a possession game.
So, we would sort of trap them. We would throw the puck and sit back and let them come up the ice, and then we'd
score in transition.
We'd wedge them and angle them, and at the time there was a red line that if they didn't get to the red line, they couldn't send it all the way in or it was icing.
Sure.
So we would force them to make that pass before they got to the red line. And we knew where to intercept it and how to counter.
No, I'm not saying it's not an effective game of hockey, but
the media and everyone jumped all over it, and all of a sudden everyone believed it.
The casual fan wants like the coast to coast, breakaways, and they want like the highlight reel stuff. Where and that's why people don't think Ryan Suter is like a great hockey player because he's just you don't notice him and he's not flashy, but he does all the right things. And he doesn't have the attributes like a PK Subban kind of.
That New Jersey system leads to goals in transition, which are off the rush. Which is exciting. And it's funny because Hitchcock was talking about this during the week, saying that during the season, and this is something I hadn't picked up on, but it makes sense when you look at the two teams, that St. Louis scored off the cycle and off possession against the Wild, and the Wild scored their goals in transition off the rush against St. Louis. And then he was trying to. He was determining which goaltender to play based on who's better off the rush.
Yeah, well, I think any team in the NHL, if they're not going to win a race to the puck, I think their strategy is to probably pull back on the reins and sit back. If the other team has possession of the puck, you don't chase them behind the net, right? The guy stands out in front of the net, and they set up for a controlled breakout and a controlled forecheck.
Sure, and I would say too, the other highlight reel goal from the year was that Tarasenko goal, where he split like the D and then
he had a couple of them, I think.
and then pulled the goalie aside and then slipped it in the other side.
That was Henrik Lundqvist.
Yeah, and it was just a fabulous goal, and you don't want to praise the guy you're going up against tomorrow, but that's a guy that he can score some pretty nasty goals, and he's not a top guy. He's a more depth guy.
And that's a move.
He put up a lot of numbers though. Yeah. He's an offensive threat for sure.
That's a move people will only pull out in shootouts. I don't think I've seen anybody do it in live action besides Tarasenko. That just kind of reach around and tap.
Yeah, your body keeps going one way and then you drag the puck back.
It takes balls to try in a shootout.
It does.
I mean, seriously.
Well,
I mean,
and after you've just
we got a
gone
goal.
coast
We
to
got a
coast
goal, and it's a Minnesotan. Brock Nelson on the board for the Islanders. Brock Nelson. All we do is talk about Minnesotans, and then they just come up. Although he's a traitor, son of a bitch.
I was waiting for it.
I was never a big fan.
He's Dave Christian's nephew. Dave Christian went to the UND as well.
Yeah, I know.
So
Hockey Town, USA.
if that's what you're talking about,
Brothers
being a traitor.
Well, that's hockey royalty. I mean, it is. I mean, you got to give it. Oh, geez, he's got to have that, doesn't he? I mean, that's low glove side. You got to have that.
Yeah,
good shot.
I mean, it's a laser, but you got to have it. You got to have it. It's playoffs coming. Pick up your game. What the hell's their goalie, number 70?
Holtby.
Yeah, pick up your game, Holtby.
He's
He's
been
had a good year, too. He's had a really good year.
I was gonna say, I think he's had a pretty good year.
He's the best in the finalist, probably.
He's got to have that. He's got to have that. But anyway, the Christian family, hockey royalty. I can't badmouth the Christian.
No. Good people.
Yeah. Although again, this takes me back to an argument I got on Twitter with some North Dakota fans about a month or so ago. They have this 7-5 debate. Without the Olympic year, I'd just say it would have been 6-6. I mean, we would have had they won it in 80. We were a little busy in 80, if you know what I'm saying.
Oh, the Canadians, you mean, or
North
the
Dakota.
NC2A?
North Dakota won the NCAA team.
And they won it in 86. Is that right? 86 too.
No, 87. Hercus Circus.
Hercus Circus.
Yeah.
And Eddie Balfour.
That's when you guys lost the Zamboni door game in Detroit.
Yep. Yeah.
And what brought that back to mind is watching the Big Ten tournament. I mean, no disrespect to Ben Clymer, but everybody was just talking about the boards. I'm like, they had no shit. Throwing the 1980s. Ask John Blue about the boards.
Yeah.
I thought everyone was talking about the seats and how empty they were.
Well, that too. But I always thought Joe Louis is cool because it's the Met Center. I mean, it's the Met Center.
Yeah, it's probably from the same drawing board, right, or same architecture.
Yep, it's got the same.
Good ice.
It's bigger. It's big.
And good ice.
I got bad memories there, though. I've been there twice. I was there for the 92 regional. We got done by Lake State. It was not good. I was there for the 87 Frozen Four.
They probably won it that year, though,
didn't they?
Did they win it?
92? Yeah, Lake State did go on to win it, I do believe. But no, Maine. Was that Maine's big year? Where they had Ingraham with 50 goals and Korea? That might have been 93.
No, I don't think he's 93. He's not that old.
It was 92 or 93 that they had Korea. And they won. They had lost one game all year. They were like 39-1. But they cheated. Yes, thank you. That's
How did they cheat? I just was.
Well, Cal Ingraham had 50 goals. He went to a junior college. He took like one class at Maine. It was the biggest bunch of shit. That's why that's why I chanted cheaters at the Maine band in 2002 at the X. You know that we used to play that on the fan. Cheaters. That's
There was no rules before.
I mean that's the thing. I don't like to rip on dead guys other than Ralph Engelstad. But I mean, well, you can't say anything good about Ralph Engelstad. I mean, you just can't.
Not even the rink he built?
Well, he built nice rinks, but I mean, he wasn't a good person. You're not. I mean, I remember the day he died, and we had Rosen on our show, and Mark's Jewish. He's like, I'm not going to say anything good about a Nazi, sympathizer or whatever. But anyway, we're getting down to some weird tangents.
Yeah,
but not to say anything bad about.
Just another wild Wednesday.
Yeah.
I lost my train of thought. There was another dead guy that I was going to say something
Sean
bad
Walsh.
about. Sean Walsh. He was a cheater. Sean Walsh was a fucking cheater. And everybody's mourning. I mean, it's sad. He got cancer. We get it. But he cheated. Well, he cheated. He was dirty. Nobody cheats in college hockey.
Grave Dancers Union.
But seriously,
We got to get Jeff back on track here.
Does anybody cheat in college hockey?
No other topics and shiny objects around Jeff.
Well, come on. When you got a guy who scores 50 goals, which is ridiculous in college hockey, and he's going to the JUCO down the road. I mean, come on. I mean, have you seen any cheating?
Tim Harr scored 50, didn't he?
Well, yeah, but that's in 79. But they still didn't want him on the Olympic team. He wasn't one of us. I still have a hard time believing that the Gophers, members of the Gopher team, stood up to Herb Brooks and said, we don't want Tim Harr. I mean, you were on the Gophers, and you went away to play on an Olympic team. If a Gopher shows up at the last minute, you going to get that guy out of here? I mean, come on.
Depends, if he's taking your spot.
Who's on the...
I got cut from the Olympic team, so.
Oh, you didn't make the 88 team? I thought you did.
I got cut.
Oh.
I mean, right at the very end.
Oh, so you're Ralph Cox.
I was Ralph Cox at the very, very end.
Who was on that squad? Give me some names. Who bumped
Besides Millen, Snuggerud, Okerlund.
Yeah, Okerlund got time. He got time on that squad.
Mike Richter was the goalie. Brian Leach. Kevin Stevens.
They should have been better than they were.
Scott Young, Craig Janney.
Damn, they should have been all right. What the hell happened? They didn't medal.
The Russians.
Peter Laviolette, now NHL coach.
Damn.
Yeah.
That was a budding star squad.
Yeah.
It was almost like a World Junior squad.
I was on one of those too. Won a bronze medal.
Did you really? Where was it?
It was in Hamilton, Ontario. Cops Coliseum.
So you didn't come home and tank because you didn't have to come from Europe or anything.
No. It was good.
All right, we got 7-8 minutes left. Everybody here, great hockey minds. Yeah, I mean, Ben, you're over there, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm still here.
He's got the Dominator jersey going and everything.
How about
in the playoff
How
mood.
about some just I don't want to say dark horse things in the playoff, but things that you think will happen that maybe everybody else isn't expecting. Something that you think's on the radar.
Well, I don't know that it's. I mean, it's getting kind of trendy actually for people to pick teams like the Senators and the Jets even, but. You know,
People are loving the Jets.
Russo's picking the Jets. I asked Michael.
Yeah,
Russo
I like the Flames too. I think the Flames will beat the Canucks. I think
love
that's
Johnny Gaudreau.
semi-popular, but other than that, I don't know. Everything. This is such a wide open playoffs. It's really actually kind of awesome.
It really is.
You can point at any wild card team and. 3 out of 4 at least are pretty favored, and the one that isn't is Pittsburgh, which is kind of weird. I'm kind of a little bit of a closet Pittsburgh apologist, but
Fleury sucks.
Yeah, but if good Fleury shows up, I'm not saying they could beat the Rangers, but everyone's predicting them to get blown out. So
Fleury, the minute I knew Fleury was a mental midget. Well, do you remember the first time USA won gold in the World Juniors? It was kind of that fluky third period where Fleury fucked it up. Was Marc-Andre Fleury, and he was 18 years old and nowhere near being ready for the NHL, or 19. And the Penguins called him up to get him away from the Canadian media. They're like, fuck, we can't let this kid go home. He's going to get seriously. The Penguins called him up after the World Juniors to get him away from Canadian media because they knew he'd be crushed. That's what kind of a pussy he is. Well, seriously. I mean, you know what it's like up there.
Tell us how you really feel.
Well, but I mean, you know what it's like up there. He's a French-Canadian kid. I mean, they were probably right to do it.
Yeah,
and that game was a disaster. I mean, Canada should have won that thing hands down.
He's had some pretty off games in the NHL too.
Oh, he's an idiot.
But
he's Darcy Kemper.
I don't know how much fight that team has. I think they've had some ups and downs all year. I just think if they get down, I don't know how much fight they have in them.
Wow, I'm going to tell Paul Martin you said that.
I actually had a question.
I'm a friend of Paul Martin's. I love Paul Martin, but I got to call it the way I see it from.
I call him Suter light. I think his game is kind of like it's an underrated game.
Yeah,
it's a subtle game.
It is a very subtle game,
but he makes no mistakes. He's robo defensive.
He makes the puck well.
He never fucks up. I mean, he just never does anything wrong.
Both of them get beat once in a while.
Well, everybody does. I mean, nobody.
You're on the ice for that much time, I suppose. You're gonna.
I mean. Nobody's perfect, Chorske. I mean, Jesus Christ.
So who do you got?
Bobby Orr got scored on once in a while. I mean, he had a minus game here and there, for God's sake.
He was plus 122 one year.
Jesus Christ, really?
Yeah,
Keith Ballard was minus 30 one year in the minors. I called the minus 30 guy at Leo's Flip Cup tournament.
That's a green jacket. Send him a green jacket.
He was minus 29, but I rounded it up. I call him minus 30 guy. But
I got in the West. When bracket I filled it, I have every single underdog winning.
Wow.
So
really,
I mean, which even isn't a stretch. Well, no, Chicago is the lower seed. So no,
why do you have Calgary win it? What's your reasoning?
Johnny Gaudreau.
I think Calgary is just after they knocked out LA. I think they're riding a wave.
They're tough.
Why does Melrose call them Calgary? They're not Calgary.
Organization.
Well, I mean, why does Doc Emmerich call Granlund like Gronlund?
Why does Wally Shaver a Canadian accent? He grew up in Apple Valley. I mean, don't get started on Wally Shaver.
I looked at it actually.
Shiny object.
Vancouver's got a lot of problems scoring 5-on-5. They rely really heavily on their special teams, and it's kind of a popular conception.
And they're not starting Miller.
Yeah, they're starting.
It might not be a bad idea considering what Miller did last year
in his first game back. But yeah, they're actually like 22nd in the league in 5-on-5 scoring. They rely just so heavily on their power play unit basically, and their penalty kill is really good as well. But not a whole lot of that in the playoffs.
Typically in the playoffs, that doesn't do it.
Yeah, it gets out thrown out the window. And Calgary was like 10th, I think, in 5-on-5 scoring. So I picked them to win as well.
Yeah,
everybody loves St. Louis in the West. I mean, all the national experts, they're just all over St. Louis out of the West. I mean,
they have been the past couple of years, too.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
You're talking about in the national media?
Yeah, I mean, like Butcher Gross and Levy.
Well, maybe.
NHL Network guys.
NHL Network guys picked us over the Blues.
Well, no, I went on the website. I went on NHL.com, and they had their 10 senior writers. 6 of them had the Blues, 4 of them had the Wild.
Well, at least on the Western Conference preview that I saw,
too.
Kevin Weeks, I think.
Kevin Weeks took us all the way to the finals, and then Jamie McLennan brought us, I believe. And they had us losing to.
The goalies love us.
For a small amount of time.
Weeks and McLennan.
It's on the expansion draft, but
the goaltenders are on the Dubnik fight.
But basically, I mean,
pretty much.
But maybe so. But I think, just to have that sort of recognition means something. I mean, both of those guys.
Weeks likes the fact that we got two black guys. But he's down with that. Come on, there's nothing wrong with that.
I hadn't even thought of that.
Oh yeah, I mean that's why Weeks is on board.
And I don't think it was just those two. I think it was the consensus of all the people on NHL Network.
Well, I mean, you follow the national media more than I do. I mean, you read the Scott Burnsides of the world more.
Well, and they were hot on us for a while, and I think then we dropped a couple at home, and then we lost.
Now they're on the hamburger train.
And now, I mean, they're loving the Ottawa vibe, and even though I think we came from a farther journey than they did, and considering the sicknesses we've had with the mumps and everything else. I mean, we overcame a fair amount of adversity this year. I mean, not only that, to mention, like, two of our captains lost their fathers. Yeah. Especially the heart and soul of the team, who lost his father in a really tough way to during the season, and he had to endure that and then rally and come back. I mean, hell, how great of a story would it be, if he does go all the way, and it's for his dad. I mean, nobody's brought that up, and I don't know if it's like an unsaid thing.
Like Michael Jordan. I know, I thought about it.
But I mean, you bring up like shit. I mean, of all the things the guy has been through. I mean, the guy has had how many 30-plus goal seasons? I mean, what is it? 6? I think 6 or 7.
7, I think.
So he has that many. I mean, he makes it to the finals and everything. But the year he loses his dad, what a great story and tribute it would be to hoist the cup for his dad. I mean, you can't write or make up.
Sure, he is probably playing, with that in mind, little inspiration.
Hey, Tom, thanks for coming out. This was awesome.
My pleasure.
I mean, you got to learn how to return a direct message on Twitter, though. That was crazy. You're not very Twitter friendly, are you?
I am.
All right, well, we'll work on that. We'll talk about it off air. But no, thanks for coming out. There's been a lot of fun. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks to Bennett. I think Chorske's about to get the tomahawk with au gratin. That's what I would recommend. Thanks to Jason McGovern. Thanks to Ben Remington. Thanks to Scott Schweitz. Tony Dean returns next week.